All right, so in 2025, you've got on your list of New Year's resolutions to start your own accounting firm, to start your own CAS practice. What does that look like for you? Have you thought about what your plan looks like? Have you put together a business plan? Why is 2025 the right year to do it? And what's the checklist that you need to be thinking about as you start your firm? So I've been there. In 2022, I launched my own practice and I had no idea what I was doing. I started slowly to some degree, 2 months of just internal operations focused, technology focused, before I even told anybody that I was starting a firm. I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not, because ultimately after about 6 to 8 months, it all got unwound anyway. So today we're going to walk through, to some degree, a checklist of how to think about starting a CAS practice in 2025. We're going to walk through some lessons learned that I experienced my first 3 years of firm building, and then what opportunities exist on getting started, getting launched. How do you start in the right way? Because ultimately, this is an entrepreneurial endeavor. This is not an easy journey, particularly if you don't have a money tree growing in the corner that you can just use to pay your bills and hire people and start to offload that work to grow a more scaled version of an accounting firm. And maybe your goal isn't to build a scaled accounting firm. Maybe it's to work 15 hours a week and have a stable list of 6, 8 clients, and you feel really good about that. Ultimately, both paths will require a certain degree of expertise in a niche. They'll require specificity around operations, technology, automations, and really just orienting a firm that not only serves your clients really well, but serves you in your life really well. When I started my practice, it was one of those ideas that I had that I thought, man, maybe there's an opportunity here. I came from a business development role where I was passing off opportunities left and right because it didn't meet the core target market that I was going after in sales. And so I told myself, maybe all these deals that I'm handing off to other firms, maybe they could come to me. Maybe I could be the one servicing those, knowing that I did have an expertise in accounting. I did have an expertise in sales, and I could perhaps marry those things to just get it off the ground. One of the most important things for me when I was launching my firm was that I established boundaries with my family up front to say, all right, I'm going to give this a really hard go for 6 months. 6 months, I'm going to give this my all. And if we don't have some degree of subjective momentum or a path forward after 6 months to maybe start paying myself, I'll go find a job. So if that's the worst case outcome, I'm okay with that because taking a risk and then perhaps failing is okay. I'd rather have that than having not tried at all. So to have this on your list of something that you want to do in 2025 is a very bold and courageous endeavor to partake in. And there is opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in 2025. When we look at the landscape of accounting services in 2025, you've got the big national firms that have CAS practices doing outsourced accounting, all the way down to the productized solutions that are looking to do this for $50, $100, $300 a month, that are really more compliance oriented. Where I think the value opportunity lies today is really in that highly niched, specialized approach on an outsourced accounting or tax service where you know the industry better than anyone. You can market specifically to an ideal customer profile that is really specific. You can own that space online. You can own that expertise in-house, and then you can be the go-to person for that thing. Jason Statz, Logan Graff, a ton of other folks have talked a lot about how to specialize, how to niche. Geraldine Carter is a great expert on how to orient a firm around a core expertise that keeps you focused and narrows your tech stack, that improves margin. There's a lot of ways to think about that. Ultimately, when you're starting your firm, you need to identify who do you want to serve? What type of firm do you want to build? What type of services do you want to offer? And then how do you plan on getting that message out to those people that could potentially work with you? If you have those three things down alongside of the compliance and filing, you're going to be off to a good track. Now, there is becoming more and more competition as over the last 3 weeks, I see almost every day a new post on LinkedIn that says, I'm starting my own accounting firm. So don't let that scare you when you're starting a firm. Don't let that intimidate you that, there's already too many options out there, because ultimately the world is very big. Again, Jason says this on his podcast all the time. It is a very big world. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity. And if depending on what your goals are as you build your practice, you will find those opportunities if you're building it in a way that can reach those prospective clients very intelligently. So when you're launching your firm, from a checklist perspective, you need to think about planning and strategy. How are you defining who you are? This is really a mission, vision, values exercise of identifying what is your ethos? Who are you going to be? How do you want to stand out? What voice do you want to have that is different than the accounting firm on the corner? Once you have that, you can marry it up to your niche. Who do you serve? What are you doing and how are you doing it for them? So, who are you? Who do you serve? And what do you do for them are going to be three areas that I think you need to nail from a messaging standpoint. Then you need to do some degree of market analysis to understand, like, where do you sit on the spectrum of high advisory, high level expertise down to productized or commoditized type solutions. If you can identify on the scale where you land, that gives you some idea from a pricing perspective on where you should fall out. Once you have all of that planned and ideated, knowing that it's going to change, leaning into that long-term vision that you have. I'm not a huge fan of long-term planning because I feel like it puts some blinders on me and I struggle with that. I like to have optionality. So don't put too many eggs in this basket, but if you have a long-term vision and you can understand where you want to take this as a firm, it will help you understand when you're setting things up, what's the corporate structure that you need. So you've got this ethos, you've got these values, you've got the who you serve, you've got the how you're going to reach them and what services you're going to offer to them. But the structure, the legal structure is actually really important relative to all of those things and how you want to move forward as a firm. The legal structure is important because ultimately, if you want to build a solopreneur practice that really enables a quality lifestyle for you, that's going to look very different than building a firm that may have opportunity to bring in other partners, capital solutions, and or a potential exit in the future. So think about how you do that. Ultimately, you see most firms going that LLC partnership route. You see some solo firms going the S Corp route. I'm not a tax accountant. For those tax accountants of you listening, you will know this far better than I do. But maybe that's an area that you can serve. You can think about how to advise new entrepreneurs, new firm owners on how to come up with this structure. So coming up with preparing for the financial aspect of it, you need to estimate what initial investment do you think that you need to make in order to build something that matches that vision, that matches those values, that matches the clients that you serve. So what investment do you need to make in hardware just for yourself? Maybe it's a laptop, maybe it's a camera, maybe it's some tools to generate some content, and then software. What software do you want to build your firm on from a client perspective? What tools do you want to use for them? QuickBooks, Gusto, Mercury, other tools in market that you say, I want to use these tools every time. Not a big dollars investment. However, it's something you need to consider. What capital outlay do I need to put up front in order to yield maybe training or capital in order to get the licenses I need in order to be credible in this space? And then it's the internal firm tech stack that's going to drive a little bit more cash outflow as you determine what tools you need to use in order to move forward. For me, when I started, the very first software that I paid money for was Ignition. Ignition's a tool that allowed me to not only provide proposals to customers in a really professional and polished manner, but also then to collect the cash on the back end. And so I wanted to make sure that I had that nailed down, and it was really tight. It looked really good. And from the first experience with me and Full Send, clients felt like they were taken care of. They felt like it was professional. They felt like it was an experience that they could trust. So for me, I signed up for a year subscription to Ignition, and that was the first software that I ever purchased. Then I dove into practice management. This is going to be the second big capital outlay that you make. And it's going to be an investment and something that if you onboard it without the intent of scaling, it's going to be really hard because ultimately you want to create an onboarding rhythm, a rhythm with your practice management system that really can move up the value ladder as you bring on more clients. And when I say up the value ladder, I mean, what efficiencies is it creating for you as you continue to bring on new clients? So maybe it's how you're gathering documents from clients. Maybe it's how you're invoicing and billing your clients because there's a lot of two-in-one systems now. Maybe it's how you're keeping track of tasks. Maybe how the software automates a lot of the workflow. Maybe how it communicates to clients. There's a lot of considerations to make when looking at a practice management or workflow management software. But when you're starting to do this, you're starting to build the infrastructure for your firm, and you need cash to do that. Once you've determined some degree of startup costs and what you think that's going to cost you, then you need to start leaning into how am I going to take this startup investment that I'm making in the firm from a tech stack perspective, from an education perspective, and then start thinking about your branding, start thinking about your marketing. it may be worth at this point in time investing in an external solution to help you get set up, because the first impression that you have on your market is going to be the one that sticks. And so when you invest assets into digital creation of a brand, you're starting to put your flag in the ground that says, this is who I am. This is how this brand relates to my ethos, relates to my vision, relates to my values, relates to the client that I serve, relates to the services that I offer. And so I think that spending time and money in creating a professional logo, a professional website, a professional online presence that sets you apart and that can convey those messages really, really well is one of the best investments that you can make. Personally, I would want to invest in a brand that I know can flex as my startup firm flexes as well. Because when you start out, you've got this idea of what you think it's going to be. 3 months later, it changes. 3 months then after, it changes. So your firm is evolving very, very quickly, particularly if you're starting with the intent to scale a practice. And when I mean scale a practice, you're bringing on employees, you're looking to grow over time. If you're managing a solopreneur firm, this is going to be more focused around the relationships that you have, the opportunities that you have for referrals. And so it may be a little bit less important to have like a really banger brand because it is going to be all centric around you. Now, it still will be important to invest capital into how do you create a good presence for yourself, because that is effectively going to be the speakerphone for your brand. You are the brand, you are the speakerphone. In contrast to a more scaled version of accounting firm where I think segmenting out the firm brand and presence from the initial founder is going to be really important as you scale forward, because the more that you're able to create distance between those things, the more value that you're driving back to the firm. So after you have some degree of investment into your brand, into your online presence, you need to figure out what your go-to-market strategy looks like. Most firms to date have grown organically through word of mouth, through referral. So there's a heavy emphasis on networking early on, participation in events, putting your name out there. I think if I was starting a firm today, from day one, I would lean really heavily into content creation. When you look at things like intent search or intent-based content, and if you're focused on a niche, you can do really, really well organic SEO by creating content that is based on the intent of the searchers of your target market. So if your target market is jewelers, maybe you're working with a ton of jewelry brands, and that owner of the jewelry brand is looking for accounting or tax services, they're going to Google something to the effect of like accounting services for jewelry companies or tax strategy for jewelers. If you can create content that's specific around what people are searching for, you will immediately pop up in SEO on channels like YouTube, on LinkedIn, on X. Those are all hitting search algorithms these days. Even Reddit is popping up. So if you can start organically leaning into different mediums that immediately boost your SEO because of their credibility in the market, platforms like YouTube, X, and Reddit, that will immediately start to push opportunities back to your firm and build credibility for your website. And if your website doesn't have a really professional image and brand, it's going to be really difficult to create that conversion from content to brand. Now, when I say professional brand, I don't mean like Smith, Jones and Hughes, CPA firm on the corner that serves jewelers. I mean, does it resonate with the target? Does it resonate with the voice that you carry for your firm? It could be wild. It could be adventurous. It could be really bold. It could be kind of humorous and a little bit irreverent. I think identifying ways that you can stand out like that then also relates to your target market will enable you to scale much more quickly organically with leads that you don't have a pre-existing relationship with when you make the investments in that digital brand as well as the content creation on the back end. When you're starting to create content, it's going to be really difficult. You're not really going to know what to publish. I would just get onto ChatGPT or Claude and just start asking questions like, hey, what are typical questions that a jeweler in Tampa would ask related to accounting? Hey, give me a list of 15 questions they might ask. You can start hammering down that list and creating content with a title of exactly what those questions are, because you then should have the expertise to lean into that niche to answer that question in an effective manner for somebody to consume and say, hey, I got value out of that. If your content is helpful, it will do great. Now, there is a degree of quality that needs to come with that from a video production standpoint. But ultimately, if you've got an iPhone, if you've got a MacBook, if you've got a good mic, that's really all you need, in addition to being helpful and reaching a target market who's got a specific question that they're trying to ask. So I would lean really heavily into intent-based content. When you're able to do that, then you can start to reorient a lot of that messaging on your website around the intent-based content that you're creating to drive that organic traffic. Now, when you're starting out, nobody's going to know who you are. Your content's going to get 100 views. You're really not going to be pushing a lot of organic traffic into your firm. This is a long-term game if you're trying to build a scaled firm. That digital asset that you create to educate somebody will last forever. And there may be a point in time where jewelers have this wild growth streak and everybody's interested in jewelry, and now they're searching for content. So that post, that content that you generated 6 months ago may take a long time before it really starts popping off. But once you reach the point of growth and traction and visibility in social channels, you're probably going to start to have a version of a firm that that is really leveraging that for growth, in addition to the organic sales efforts that you're maintaining in a go-to-market rhythm. Now, early on, it's pretty challenging to get clients in the door. You have to get really good at sales. You have to get really good at speaking about your product in a way that can improve somebody's outcome or improve their life. If you can do that, if you can create a bridge between how your services will help somebody in a sales conversation, in a prospecting conversation, and articulate what your process is to do that really, really well, it will provide a lot of comfort to that prospect in signing up for you, because ultimately you don't have a full list of track record of social proof that can help them make a decision. So you have to really lean into how are you selling your services to prospects in a way that they can trust you. So you can lean into sales coaching. You can lean into tons of educational content on YouTube on how to sell effectively. I've got a lot of content on CAS Minute on sales. You can check that out, understand different sales strategies, different methodologies of messaging and communication that you can use. But ultimately, that's going to be something you really, really have to get good at in order to bring those first customers in if you don't have a long list of pre-existing relationships and a network that can provide referrals to you. When I talk about the process of how to drive value or create outcomes for your client, this is really going back to the tech stack that you choose, the workflow management software that you use, how you gather documents from clients, how do you communicate with them, what tools are you using for reporting. That enables you, that decision early on will really help you in prospect conversations and sales, articulate how you're going to deliver value to that client. So then when you enter that conversation, you can say, I use these 3 tools, I follow this process to drive an outcome for you. You want to document that, knowing that, again, it's going to change, but you want to document that process so that you can be highly communicative with new prospects coming in, that you know what you're doing, that they can trust you. The last piece here that I'll hit on, because I've already gone way longer than a normal CAS Minute episode, is that you want to start looking at, how do I get involved early on as much as possible? And when I say get involved, on one side, that's content creation, one side that's really sharing your expertise and knowledge, one side that's building a brand, but also it's like locally, how do I get involved in the ecosystem that I'm looking to serve? How do I get my name out there? And so I think to some degree, most accounting firm owners from the get-go need to introduce a rhythm of networking meetings or connector meetings on a cadence that makes sense for them. And so you may be meeting with bankers, you may be meeting with HR professionals, you may be meeting with attorneys who have a degree of relationships, pre-existing relationships in this market that you're looking to serve. So not only would I be leaning into content creation for the specific target market that I'm serving, I would also be leaning into relationships with other professionals who serve this market. I would look to do at least 3 to 5 meetings per week with folks that also serve that industry. And an easy way to do that is just going on LinkedIn, going on other websites that tell you what type of services people offer to the niche that you're serving, and just cold reach out to them and say, hey, I serve this industry, you serve this industry. I think there might be an opportunity to collaborate here. Let's find 30 minutes where we can grab a virtual coffee and meet, because I'd love to learn more about what you do so that I can potentially refer you to some of my clients. Now, they don't know that you don't have any clients today, or maybe you have 3 clients. Ultimately, you want to put your clients in a better position to succeed. So you want to have resources for them as they grow and evolve over time. And so it's not disingenuous to tell your connector groups that, hey, you want to refer clients to them because ultimately you do want to have a library of folks that can be helpful to your clients as they scale. When you're in the process of going to market, you're launching out of the gates, you post that LinkedIn post, I'm opening up my new firm, you get all of these likes and comments, congratulations, good job. And then you put your head down and it's just you. It can be really challenging. It can be super hard. It is very lonely. You get home from work that day, whatever it is you were doing, hopefully creating content, hopefully creating some connector meetings, and maybe you get home and you talk to your spouse and you're like, this is what I did today. And they're like, I don't really know what that means. It can be really challenging. Like you oftentimes don't have somebody in your corner that's like, yeah, I totally understand this and I understand what the pain points look like. And I understand like how to relate to what your day-to-day looks like in this entrepreneurial journey in an industry that's not super entrepreneurial. Like it's hard. It's hard. I would highly recommend that in tandem with you launching your new practice in 2025, as you've done all these things to get up to speed, to lay the foundation for this new practice, join a community. Find a group that has gone through this path before, who has stepped in these shoes before you have, and just start to build relationships with other folks doing the same thing. This could be one of the most powerful things that you do for your accounting firm journey in 2025. There are so many groups out there, whether it's Realize, Future Firm, Counter, Automation Town, Roundtable Labs. There are so many groups that you can look into that can help you out on your journey. By nature of doing that, you will immediately surround yourself with a community that gets you, that understands you, and you will only get as much out of it as you put in. So I would highly recommend you spending some time in communities alongside of launching your firm in 2025. So we've gone through a really long list of a ton of things that you should be thinking about. There's 1,000 other things that you should be thinking about as well. But as you start your journey in 2025, keep your head up. It could be really hard. There are highs, high highs, and low lows. When I signed my first client, it literally brought tears to my eyes that somebody would trust me with their financials. And those experiences will continue on, and they will get different, and they will change. And the things that emotionally impact you on this journey are gonna be so drastically different than the day you start your firm. I've also had tears of sadness too, tears where maybe I screwed something up, or maybe I had to let somebody go, or maybe I didn't feel like I was in the right mental space. I wasn't taking care of myself mentally and physically enough to where it was releasing the emotional anxiety and the stress that comes along with this journey. So I don't want to underestimate the importance of you taking care of yourself in this journey. It's one of those things that's really easy to forget because you get so involved and so wrapped up in this journey of building something that you really want to spend all of your extra time doing it because you're passionate about it. You want it to succeed. You want it to grow. So do not underestimate the importance of having the physical outlet, moving your body, getting vitamin D, going outside, and then spending time where your mind is quiet and you can emotionally release the stresses that come with this journey. Please invest in resources for your mental health because you want to avoid the breakdown that I had 2 years into my journey where I was brought to my knees effectively. I was crying and I just hadn't taken care of myself, and everything welled up with stress in the firm. It was a really difficult time for me personally. I don't want anybody to have to go through that. And so again, leaning into community, finding resources to help your mental and physical health along this journey will tremendously help you. I wish you all the luck in 2025. If I can be helpful to you or my network of other accounting firm owners can be helpful to you, please reach out. I think you're going to do great. Good luck. Until next time.